In this video, we're going to show you how to take off your rear wheel.
Awesome. So with the rear wheel, what I always recommend is putting into the lower gears here. Just because if you do have it in these higher or the bigger cogs there, it gets a little bit more difficult. So it's just like when you're taking off the rear wheel, you're going to open up this quick release here. And then what you're going to find is that it's going to be quite hard to get around that rear derailleur. That's why I always recommend going down to those lower rings here. So if you go down to these lower rings here, you'll definitely see it's a little bit easier. This falls right out. And that's pretty much what you need to know when shifting the rear derailleur into the appropriate gear. And then just take out the rear wheel there. You'll always have to get your hands dirty and just take the chain off there and just pull it right out.
Now, I find a lot of people have trouble with that, especially putting the wheel back on. So let's see how you put that wheel back on.
So with putting the rear wheel on, the nice thing is if you did shift it down to that smallest ring there, you just have to put the chain somewhat near there, just because the rear derailleur will always go inwards like that. Then you just kind of align everything. You can see how much play I have, and then you just kind of line in the dropouts, kind of just wiggle it in, and then make sure the quick release is open. And then make sure you're pushing up so it's not crooked. So you can see it's getting a little bit crooked there. So it's making sure it's up in the dropouts all the way, and then just kind of tightening this by hand. What you want is just having the quick release starting to bite here a little bit, and then pushing it the rest of the way there. And that's all you need to know.
So when you said pushing up, what did you mean by pushing up?
Just making sure that with the dropouts here, that the hub is inserted all the way touching this side and touching the other side, so that's not crooked or floating on one side or the other. So pushing up on both sides. Yeah. So here's the quick release here. Always on the rear wheel. It will be on the non-drive side or the rotor side if you have a mountain bike. But you can see it's up all the way, won't go left or right any. And you can kind of see it dropping a little bit. That's what we don't want. We just want to push up on both sides, and then just having it just bite there a little bit, and just adjusting this as long as it's biting there, and then you just push this all the way, and then that should be tight enough to keep that rear wheel on.
How much resistance should we have on that lever?
Nothing too extreme. Like obviously, you know, if you're going to over tighten this, what you're going to find is it's going to be almost impossible to actually take it off. So that's getting pretty tight there, but then it becomes quite difficult to take off.
So that's too hard there.
Yeah, that's probably a little bit too hard. You know, everything in moderation. You know, you want to be able to put it on with a little bit of security, as well as take it off with a little bit of ease. So you got to find that nice, fine balance. But I'd recommend going a little bit on the harder side.
Okay, I want a view from the back here, because a lot of people say, Todd, I have such a hard time taking that rear wheel off. If I ever have a flat tire in a race, I always want it to be the front, not the back. So let's see you take that back wheel off again from the back view here.
Yep. So obviously, you know, quick release is tight. Unfortunately, got a flat tire. So first thing is to open up the quick release here. Maybe loosen it off just a little bit, just to the left here, and then just pretty much let it fall. Another thing as well is you can also lift the bike up so it's in the air like what we have it right now, and then just with one hand kind of like let it fall, kind of let it guide down, and then just grab the chain off there, do your flat tire change, which we'll be going over, and then put it back in. So you're going to have to put in between the two chains here, and then kind of go up and then just kind of wiggle it up there. Then grabbing it in the center here, and then just guiding it so it's nice and into those dropouts there, and then just tightening it up there.
Cool. Now, one thing we did forget to talk about was if your brakes are on, and you have to release the brakes a bit, right?
Yeah. So for a lot of the bikes here, majority of the road bikes here are going to have a caliper brake here. There's always going to be this one little lever on the side here. What this one lever does is, you can see if I open this up here, it makes it a little bit wider. So if you have a fairly wide tire, obviously on this bike, since it's a nice skinny tire, you don't really necessarily have to open it up. But for bikes with, you know, a little bit wider road tire, you're going to have to open it up. So just make sure that's open. If you can't get the rear tire off or out of the dropouts, just open that up, and that should make it a little bit easier.